FlyQuest are one game away from qualifying to the quarterfinals of Worlds 2024 in their 2-1 matchup against the first seed of the LCK, and they beat them with Nunu. Did you think you were ever going to hear this sentence?
I'm not going to say the #1 seed of LCS, just maybe 2 years in a row they're going to make it in from the 2-1 match.
It's crazy. I would argue that this one would be more impressive, and I think you would agree. Yeah. I know you can't help bringing it up, but this is crazy.
I mean, listen, especially, they're the most unserious, serious team that I've seen maybe ever, because, like, Nunu aside, Bwipo was in a hole that game. He got 2v1 dove at level 5. He got killed again later in the game, and then he was the first one to level 18. It doesn't actually make like that much sense, but the way that, and Emily and I were talking about this during the game, the way that FlyQuest actually play side lanes and get experience for Bwipo, like from 20 to 30 minutes, it's incredibly good.
And Bwipo keeps doing it. It doesn't matter if it is a suboptimal pick or he's in a suboptimal position or something happened in the game that isn't really that great for them, right? And it's not all him, of course not. It is definitely a group effort, but I mean, he's playing out of his mind in these team fights.
I think it's absolutely a group effort, right? Because we talked about, again, top of day. We talked about it in the previous game with the composition they brought out. This is a team that it's their own individual mistakes versus they have such strong ideas and identity around the compositions that they draft. And I've always really appreciated this about FlyQuest, is that they seem so unified in terms of, here's what we have, we're loading in, this is what we're gonna do. I did not expect the Nunu, maybe none of us did, except for FlyQuest.
And isn't that exactly what they wanted? Because we were talking about it before the series, right? Jad, I asked you the question.
Yeah.
You know, what do you think about this? The fact that they are keeping things close to their chest on purpose because they feel like they have an ace up their sleeve, and the fact that it is working, I think that is so commendable.
It is. Massu needs to eat the orange rather than holding it in front of his nose. That gives him no benefits. But I will also say,
maybe it just smells nice.
Maybe it does. It's paying off. You're absolutely seeing it's paying off. There was a very big moment in that game where Doran channeled TP in the face of Nunu while E was on him. And E's just going to root him and interrupt the teleport every time. That was mind-boggling that happened. And
okay, so here's what I think, okay? Obviously, HLE have done a great job of banning out this, right? But little did they know that this is essentially just Ivor.
He's just going to build the same items.
Yeah. Exactly.
But they don't know exactly what it does, so it works.
I mean, there are high elo Nunus. That's the weird thing about this, but not necessarily that are going to play in an organized team environment. So, I mean, I've loved what FlyQuest have done in both drafts. I actually really liked the first draft. I understood the first draft a lot more than I understood this second draft.
But it's amazing to watch. I will say two things can be true at the same time, which is that FlyQuest is coming in here absolutely prepared to play their own style, holding their nerve in these long games that are hard to finish out. And there are some things from HLE that we have seen that some decision-making, I'm going to say, that I feel like is out of character at times. Two things can be true at the same time. Or you could just say they're just so tilted because they're losing the Nunu.
I mean,
which one is it?
I don't think they're tilted. I do think they have been a bit disrespectful, I'd say, of like how they've been playing. They really do believe that they are better mechanically, and I would agree with them in that regard. But I think you see that here, right? With a lot of the way that they've been over chasing and over diving in a lot of fights.
Game one.
Yeah, and behind us we actually have game one, and you can see how it looked like FlyQuest was actually going to win when that goal graph just like dipped down right there, because they had this great counter-engaged team comp into HLE, which was full dive, even though they had all the meta S-tier champions from this Worlds patch so far. I really like this. And then if we cycled to game two here, this was them taking that team comp all the way to victory. They played it a lot smoother, they had better control, and they were able to avoid getting picked off throughout pretty much the entire middle late game.
And twice, early game isn't like perfect, I would say. It's not that good, right? But the fact that it doesn't matter is so valuable. The fact that you have shown that in the face of these players that everyone thinks that are mechanically stronger, that should be better, you hold your nerve in the most important team fights. I mean, Viper was a machine also in that last game, right? These are
Both
not
games.
easy
He's
fights
so good.
to fight out. I think we have an example of some of them, one where they lose the Drake, but they win the fight. And this has now happened enough for me to think that perhaps they could be the better team in the series.
I think they could be the better team if they keep getting these strange matchups. Like, one thing that we didn't talk about as much as we're talking about the Nunu is, like, what is this Yasuo doing in this team composition? It doesn't really make any sense. And as this fight plays out, even though Nunu got knocked away and couldn't get the Drake, you see the Yasuo fly in and really do absolutely nothing as we cut to Bwipo on stage.
Why not?
Shocks.
Yeah, it's
I don't know how you and Emily feel, but I'm suddenly nervous. I came into this with very low expectations. I was thinking, okay, maybe FlyQuest can put up a fight, maybe they can cheese a win, but because game 1 felt so winnable and game 2 was actually a win, now I believe that if they have a third strategy, that they could actually win the series.
I mean, a couple of things. We brought it up in the beginning, and Emily only touched on it briefly because I don't think, you know, when you talk about Peanut and Doran and Worlds last year, but also in general, what is haunting them and what has been haunting them, which kind of puts a blemish on their achievements, is the fact that when the stress is the highest and when they need the top performance, you know, they are in these games where if it's them or if it's the team, it doesn't work out, right? And you can say what you want, that's in their head now, going into game 3.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say less of that here and more of I do think they fully believe that they're the better team. I also don't think they've been performing super badly individually. Like, Peanut has had a really good early game in both of these games.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, is that not haunting you going into a game 3, losing the way you have, where specifically that late game and the last one, and I don't know, man.
It depends on how you approach it, right? Because on the one hand, you could be like, well, we kind of drafted this like all hands composition and we're going to, you know, retool our draft and figure out what we want to do for this next game because we still believe we're the better team.
Yeah.
But I will say the most concerning thing is that in both of these games, FlyQuest has seemed to have a much better understanding of how they wanted to execute the champions that they picked.
One more win for FlyQuest. And one more red side win for FlyQuest. It's actually super interesting that HLE decided to stay blue when FlyQuest has a strong preference to red, and I think has outdrafted them both games.
Oh, I asked him before, but I'm going to ask him again. Azale, do you believe yet?
Of course I believe. You have to. I feel like after those first 2 games, FlyQuest were really competitive in game number 1. And in another world, they could have actually won that first game, you know, had they not gotten picked, had they gotten another 5v5. But going into game 2, you know, you're just hoping, hey, maybe they can be competitive again. But game 2, I think, was so impressive. And now you're coming into a final game here where, you know, even if they lose, this was such an impressive showing from FlyQuest.
So let's go ahead and do a little bit of a history lesson here. The last time North America beat Korea in a series at Worlds was 2018 quarterfinals, Cloud9 versus Afrika Freaks. It has been 6 years since that has happened. This is the LCK's #1 seed, and they are now in a final do-or-die match in this best-of-3 against FlyQuest. Winner goes to quarters.
And honestly, it's a really exciting time to be an LCS fan because TL got close against T1 twice this year. Now we have FlyQuest pushing HLE to the limit. You know, this is something that is very rare to see. And we'll see if FlyQuest can keep on cooking with these drafts here. Nunu not going to get banned. Cassio ban was dropped. So instead, they're actually banning out the Kalista that Massu has been performing very well on.
I think that the things that have stood out to me is Hanwha Life's Barons. They've been forcing them. FlyQuest have been responding well, right? Now, I wonder if HLE is going to put a higher priority on the Smolder. Because in the previous game, they early picked Xayah, then they picked Ezreal, but then they allowed that ball to be pinched in mid, forcing him into, he didn't want to go Trist, so he went for the Yasuo instead, which resulted in them having a bit of a disjointed comp, where if they'd had a Smolder, I think that comp would have made a little bit more sense. This time though, I'm expecting a higher priority on that as the Skarner now locked in for Peanut.
Yeah, Skarner going to be first pick. It'll be really interesting, right? Because as you say, you know, they didn't first round it, and then FlyQuest just banned it, right? So they're obviously pinching that pool. And this is a discussion we just kind of started to have before it came back to us. But, you know, the question about, you know, what is Zeka going to move towards when some of the primary champions that he likes to play are banned out? Obviously, he has really developed as a player and moved away from that reputation of being a melee-only guy. He played AD carries very well in the LCK, but those are not nearly as viable now on this patch as they were before. So if you are just going towards melee-style champions, Yone is the clear S tier, and the question is, are the ones below it, like the Akali and the Yasuo and the Sylas, going to be enough to get you across the finish line?
Okay, so we've got the Renekton banned out by HLE alongside Massu's Kalista, Inspired's Ivern, the Jax and Yone, those two powerful split pushers from game number 1, removed by FlyQuest alongside the general ban of Aurora. FlyQuest, without having the Kalista that they've played the previous couple of games, they're going to lock in the Kai'Sa for themselves. They'll lock it in right next to the Vi, two very powerful divers right here at the very start.
Oh, this could just be Xayah Rakan, honestly. Delight's Rakan is absolutely insane. I would be pretty terrified, even just after these first 3 picks, if that is going to be the response, because FlyQuest are already showing the pretty heavy commitment to dive.
Yep.
Massu sometimes does go the full AP build, and you can kind of say, all right, you know, just kidding, we're going to play poke, but it is very tough to be able to dive in onto a champion like the Xayah, and if you do go Rakan, that's Delight's best champion in my opinion. He is incredibly good at it, but it is instead looking like they might go towards a melee pick, and it is going to be a Sylas, so it is going to be another one of these melee style champions, and I wonder, could we just be getting Quad going back to the Cassio and trying to play one of these abusive matchups into a melee champion?
Okay, so remember, back a couple of years ago, 2022, when Zeka won his world championship, his muscles were being flexed. The left bicep was Sylas, the right was Akali. These were the champions that he earned his name on, and so now with this Sylas, it also makes you respect that champion in terms of the ultimates you're drafting for yourself on FlyQuest's side, but Quad is saying, okay, Cassio's the call.
Yeah, and Cassio, obviously a solid ultimate to steal there, but it's not like these are the best ultimates ever. Killer Instinct, not that useful. Vi is kind of so-so. The Cassio ult is kind of so-so. There's not any of those S tiers for him to take away. So as long as FlyQuest aren't just randomly drafting, you know, Gnar, Mumu, these kind of champions that are giving you that really powerful ults, I actually feel like Sylas can struggle in these situations. So Zeka definitely defaulting to comfort, but the question is, does this actually fit well in the context of the draft?
Well, if we're talking about things that fit into the draft, you guys were talking earlier about Xayah Rakan. Rakan, the first ban for FlyQuest. I think that's exactly the right choice. Keep that away from Delight. Keep that duo from the Xayah. And immediately, Hanwha Light paying some respect towards Bwipo's Olaf. Even though they set it behind so massively last game, it still showed up huge.
And I think that was so impressive from Bwipo to be able to battle back and make something happen on that. But I do kind of wonder, you know, why you wouldn't have just gone Rakan on 3 when Sylas has not been prioritized or banned at all in this series. You probably could have just gotten that later in the draft. So I do think, you know, it is worth questioning. Why not just go support on 3, get this incredibly powerful duo, and your support is best champ?
Well, the problem is they're going to concede the Rell, and I mean, what do you even bring? Maybe Braum? Maybe Braum?
Yeah, I think they'll go defensive champion. I think it'll be Braum. I think there's the other possibility is like, I mean, you could go towards Nautilus as well, but I think Nautilus could really struggle in this draft.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, they banned the Leona away themselves.
I think it's Braum or an Enchanter. But we'll see where he wants to go. I mean, you can still go just towards engage champs and say, you know what, I'm just going to kind of like outplay the Miasma. I'm not going to really have to worry about that. Poppy obviously was pretty effective last time.
It's also
and there
good
is, you know, Rell, Vi, and the ultimate, the Killer Instinct as well from Kai'Sa can all be interrupted. So definitely a lot of playmaking there. Yep. Oh. It's a dash. It's just a very long dash.
Yeah, I mean,
It's very fast, too.
Yep. Yep.
Fair. All right, well, let's see how Hanwha Life ran out their top side with the Jax ban. I think this was also smart from FlyQuest, something that we've just been seeing at Worlds be a popular safe blind top. Maybe the Cassante is the answer, in which case Bwipo will have something to it.
He'll go Garen if he goes Cassante, because Cassante, I think, really struggles in that matchup. You know, you go all out, you put yourself low. I think Gnar is way smarter as far as like a safe blind pick that can't just be abused here. The question is, what would Bwipo go towards? When you think of a lot of kind of the standard picks that are considered counters into the Gnar, it's not really the things that are in Bwipo's wheelhouse. If you're like, oh, you're going to go Aurelia or you're going to go Kennen, that's not really what he likes to play. So Sion, I do think, makes a lot of sense here. This is just a really beefy champion that can kind of get in the face of the Xayah, of the Sylas, and really make their job difficult. and we'll see what they can get done.
So, important things to take into consideration here. Hanwha Life have taken an approach of comfort, right? Zeka on the Sylas, you already talked about it, Flowers. It was something that we saw very prevalent in his World Championship run. Doran is picking his most played champion throughout his entire career. Like, he has to blind pick something. It's something that is very safe. And also, when you kind of look at their composition as a whole, it's very well-rounded. It's got good skirmishing. It's got solid team fighting. There are decent ultimates you can steal, disengage. It's good against the anti-dive. Oh, sorry, it's good against the dive that's coming through from FlyQuest. So kind of like, it's very broad and covers many aspects, even if it doesn't necessarily excel in one specific way.
But you know what? The more I look at these drafts, I actually think FlyQuest draft is enormously better. I don't even think you have to play dive. I think you can play for counter engage. Right. You have 4 of these melee champions into a Cassio here with the potential counter engage from the Rell, with the Sion that's just kind of creating space and making it so the Xayah can't really easily follow up. I actually think FlyQuest have a very heavily winning draft here. Of course, HLE could just out-execute, find these multi-man flanks, but I think FlyQuest have done a very good job.
Well, this was going to be my follow-up point in that I think FlyQuest have gained an appreciation for how the series has been playing out. And the biggest value I see of Bwipo is that he is getting camped by Peanuts. That has been happening both games now.
Not wrong.
And he has not really been in a position to get proper support from Inspired. And one of the best ways to deal with that is, okay, kill me, I'm still going to farm. Right? Sion is such an effective lane swap champion. This screams to me that FlyQuest is once again going to look for a lane swap in the early laning phase, and they're going to try and leverage the fact that Bwipo can soak this up, will have value later into the game, and they're going to trust in Massu and Quad to be the carries and step up in this game.
And even if they don't go for the lane swap, this is just absolute comfort for Bwipo. He has not been playing a lot this split in the LCS, but if you've been watching his stream, watching his champions queue, he's been spamming a lot of Sion. He loves going these more kind of bruiser aggressive builds with things like Sterix and sometimes even Titanic he'll go towards. We also saw him play it in their first game of Worlds against Gam, where he dominated. He was, very, very effective in that one.
And if you guys are talking about, if you're this FlyQuest comp, you don't have to play the dive, you can play for counter engage. Sion, I feel like, can be a very effective champion at that, because not only are you the brick wall, but once they finally punch through you, they have to disengage again just to get away from the dead body because it's so powerful.
Exactly. I mean, it's really tough, right? Because when you're looking at the comp, damage profile-wise, from HLE, it's really just kind of this 2-threat comp. It is about Zeka and Viper. And sure, even if Zeka gets in the backline, that's great. But if Viper can't access because the Sion is standing in between you and the rest of the team, it becomes very, very difficult. And you called it, Vetty, it is going to be the lane swap here.
So the thing that I'm really curious about here, and I'm sure something a lot of viewers are also wondering, HLE has been playing a lot more fast and loose, a lot more disrespectfully than I think people would generally expect them to play. Does the fact that you have now completely lost a game and you are on match point against FlyQuest cause their thought process and their decision making to change drastically?
I mean, I'm of the opinion that they aren't really playing, super disrespectfully. I think that it's just more playing the style of champions that they're playing, right? When you play Yasuo and stuff, you have to play very aggressively. You have to play in your opponent's face. And generally speaking, if you look at the expectations for the series, it would just be that they'd pick these mechanical picks and they would just heavily outplay FlyQuest and dominate you in the 5v5. So I feel like they're going to play the similar way to what they've been playing.
I agree with the sentiment that FlyQuest, if given enough time, have drafted today in a way to outscale HLE, right? I think the reason why Hanwha Life has kept it as close as they have in many of these games is because of how excellent they are at team fighting. I think the way in which they were able to overcome Gen.G was they're truly phenomenal team fighting. We only have to look back at their series against Gen.G just here at Worlds to think back to the Delight engage, right? And the way they navigate. Like, you look to Viper and they have so many talented individuals that really understand the limits and what they're supposed to do in a fight that they become terrifying that even at a deficit, they can find ways to outplay. But the reality is that at a certain point, comps just beat talent. And FlyQuest are consistently drafting in a way that allows them to have that advantage in the late game. And Azael is talking about how he has confidence in their late game prowess. I completely understand where he's coming from. Ultimately, it comes down to whether or not they can get through this laning phase and get to those late game fights, and how HLE will play around the Baron.
Delight in some trouble here, though. He's level 1, Busio level 2. Massu with the flash over the wall to chase after Delight once the last auto attack, doesn't find it. Massu just a little bit late there with the summoner follow, but Inspired showing up down here in the bottom lane. Bwipo's down to 200 HP. Oh, the attempted flash after the Vault Breaker to connect on Viper. So HLE coming out on top in 2 different flash-for-flash trades.
Yeah, nice attempt there. He has to predict, right? You can't obviously always be able to respond there. Viper flashed very late, which means he just has to guess where he's going to flash to. Throws that flash out to try to redirect, can't quite get it. Massu definitely a bit more of an unforced error there. Thought he could be able to get back in range to get a Q off, but couldn't quite do it. You know, had Delight incredibly low, would have loved to grab that first blood, but at the end of the day, not able to do so. It is just trade of flashes though, so not the end of the world.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that FlyQuest feel very comfortable on stage now. You know, like in game 2, I could see moments where they were being like really respectful to HLE. They weren't overstepping their bounds in the late game fights. But here at the start of this game, you can feel that they're warmed up, and the fact that Massu and Busio sit there and go, no, we can flash for this, we can go for this kill, we can. Like, you can see now that like I feel like they're playing with the weights off, and they're riding that momentum off the victory of the previous game.
And one advantage that we haven't really touched on yet, though, was Peanut being able to actually cross-mapping, steal away some of these camps. So he started on his Wolves and then was able to cross-map, take away the blue and the Gromp there from Inspired. So Inspired really had no job. He had nothing to do on the map, so that's why he looks for this early gank down towards bot lane to try to actually punish Viper. So at the very least, he was able to trade flash for flash there, but you can see he is down quite a few camps, you know, has been put behind by Peanut's pathing, and his early game has been excellent in all 3 games. Peanut really being a difference maker for HLE so far.
Bwipo just continuing to farm down here in the bottom lane with that Sion. Just wants to make sure he's stacking up as much extra health as possible with the Soul Furnace. It's something that you got to keep in mind too. The ability for this champion to generate so much free stats with the health stacking can turn him into an absolutely unassailable wall if they can scale to that point that we're already talking about. As Doran has to hop away, Busio again threatening that Gnar, making him back up, making him play respectfully. Still a slight gold lead for HLE here in the early game. Quad continuing to farm up, has not been pressured on this Cassiopeia in the early game like he was in game number 1.
So we're off to a slow and steady early game. No major advantages gained on either side. And interestingly, it was FlyQuest that kind of maintained the swap for the longest time. They've still got their bot lane on the top side, but now Hanwha Life, knowing that the grubs are spawning, have swapped their bot up towards top. You have to be careful playing against Xayah this early on. Those feathers pack a serious punch. And so I wonder if FlyQuest is going to respect that and instead prioritize the dragon. Keeping my eyes, it looks like Inspired is heading towards the bot side of the map.
And honestly, for FlyQuest, trading is the right choice. If your gold is even, you're winning this game. You heavily outscale, I think, in the 5v5, and I don't think there's massive side lane threats unless Zeka or Doran gets super fed. So for FlyQuest, you don't need to risk going into a dicey fight. You don't need to go for a 50-50 fight. Just play cross map and trade objectives.
Exactly. That's what they're doing right here. They know that Hanwha Life is more interested in the grubs. They will concede that entire trio, but instead Inspired immediately ready to jump into the Drake pit, claim that first Drake, Hex Tech Drake, so it means there won't be that super valuable Hex Tech Soul, but Zeka now has to retreat away from Quad back here in the mid lane. No ultimate expended for either champion, but Zeka does lose out on the HP trade as Peanut is again working his way into the FlyQuest jungle, steal away this buff from Inspired, steal away these camps, make it harder for Inspired to find something to do.
Great play from Peanut, just good awareness, knowing that the dragon indicator showing where Inspired is on the map, and a stacked wave means that this FlyQuest duo can't contest the red buff, means it's an easy steal for him.
And Peanut did just hit 6 there as well, so Inspired will come up, will be able to clear his Krugs, but then he's going to get the bad news. At least they do have a ward spotting him in Tribrush, so they know he's around, and if Peanut were to look for any sort of a dive, Inspired is close enough to respond, so I don't think HLE will go for anything. Again, Peanut just taking this slight advantage. Is going to be ahead from that early game, obviously gets more experience as well from the grubs, and is pretty happy with how things are going. But Bwipo definitely in his comfort zone here. If Doran is not ahead on the Gnar, it is very hard to pressure Sion.
Yep.
You know, you get enough levels, you get enough armor, and all of a sudden you just kind of become this brick wall that is so frustrating to deal with.
Yeah, he's chilling. He's got a wave, massive wave, piled up towards him. HLE clearly trying to leverage the fact that their 2v2 is winning, and Xayah is so much stronger in the early game skirmishes. So Massu going to fall a little bit behind in terms of farm. You can see that gold discrepancy slowly starting to build. Overall, though, FlyQuest.
Gage, Busio, Shattering Strike into the crash down, but Peanut is here. He's got the Impale, and this is surely first blood for HLE, and they're putting it on the dude who wants it most. Viper's getting paid.
And Peanut again finding these plays up up towards the top side, this time getting Viper paid, who had such a strong game last game on the Ezreal. Was almost 1v9 in that situation. He did something like 45,000 damage, 1,200 DPM. You know, was really the big hope for HLE in that last one, where FlyQuest could get to a lot of the other carries and burst them down, but they couldn't really get to Viper. And he was doing such a good job in these skirmishes, in these fights. And again, now on the Xayah, set up for success here. Getting that early kill creates another solid advantage for HLE.
They've now actually swapped the lanes back. They've moved Busio into mids to help Quad get this push out, and Massu's going to go and catch the remnants of the wave in bot lane.
Zeka just firing off the stolen petrifying gaze there. Always the thing with Sylas, sometimes you just have to throw the ulti out there because the timer's running out. As Bwipo back up in the top side, gonna mine some plate money.
But look at that Essence Reaver, finished for Viper, 9 minutes into the game. Like, this Xayah is strong. And the thing about Ezreal is you can be self-sufficient, which is where I think Viper really thrives. But on top of that, Xayah is the same, right? You're not afraid of this dive. If the Vi comes onto you, you're just making it even easier for the Xayah to play. And so, yeah, I think that HLE find themselves in a very good position. A 1k gold lead, largely sitting on top of Viper. The objectives are equally traded. The Grub's going to be spawning in about 1:10. Inspired, making his way into the bot lane.
Inspired with that ulti, ready to use it, but no target. HLE not going to overplay their hand here. They've got the ward inside that middle brush in this bottom lane, and it looks like Inspired gonna... Nope, just chilling still.
Yeah, we'll see how long they want to wait for this. You can see Peanut again heading out towards top. He's just trying to be very efficient with his time. And they do cancel recall one more time. Bwipo could be in some danger. They're going to look for a wraparound.
Yeah, remember that Bwipo does have the ability to use the ulti to try to get away, but they stand right in front of him, exactly the way you want to outplay the Sion ulti. Meanwhile, down in the bottom lane, Busio and Inspired trying to make the play here on Delight, but a beautiful amount of damage from Viper there with a feather call. Now he tries to get a little bit more, and Viper outplays him and slays him down here in the bottom lane. HLE's AD carry does not want to lose this series.
Viper is absolutely popping off. They go for a play onto the bot lane 2 versus 2. But you've got to remember, this Essence Reaver gives Viper so much damage. The feathers truly did fly, and they sowed destruction for FlyQuest.
Yeah, and Delight just played that so well. The CC on Massu right as he tried to fly in, really punishing. Now HLE going to be able to take 6 grubs. This is a very commanding position for them.
And crucially, it's a situation where both junglers are making plays on opposite sides of the map. On HLE's side, it succeeds. It gets them kills, it gets them plates, it gets them grubs. On the bot side, it fails. And on top of that, Viper is the one to benefit from the kills.
Yeah, exactly. And to make matters worse, they spent so much time in this brush waiting for this play here, and they have to give up the wave on the tower. Massu has to run away from it here, and watch as the ulti comes in from Delight right as he goes in. He's insta-CC'd. The feather pull is there across all 3 members from Viper. The timing on the ulti was perfect from Delight, and even though it's a good flash from Viper to avoid the redirect on the ulti, it just doesn't really matter.
Delight and Viper couldn't have played that better, right? You're in a 2v3, you come out on top, the knock up into the 3-man blade caller is just ideal for Hanwha Life. Now up almost 3,000 gold, 12 minutes into the game, plus 6 grubs. Insane start for them.
And to add insult to injury, the kill went over to Busio. So it doesn't even go on to either Inspired or Massu, which just makes things even harder for them as Viper sets his sights on that tower. The plates haven't even finished yet. We're not 14 minutes in. But HLE can just continue to play around the strength of their bottom lane right now, move them around the map. I say that typically you'd expect them to be pushing bot so they could secure the Drake, but they're going to move Zeka off to bot. Doran's going to catch mid, and they're going to get themselves their first dragon of the game.
But we'll see what FlyQuest can do from here, because obviously they were down 3,000 gold, you know, this early or even earlier last
They've been
game.
down every game.
And, you know, so it's a less significant disadvantage than they were in last game. I still feel like their spot is okay. But obviously, if HLE can get that big fight to really kind of throw it over the line, that's going to be the problem. But I mean, Quad is in a good spot. Bwipo's still in a good spot. The real problem here is Massu has been put quite far down, and that hasn't really happened thus far this series.
Yeah, the biggest advantage on the Rift right now, you can see it on the scoreboard at the bottom, plus 1.6 thousand gold, roll for roll for Viper. First items coming online across the board, really. Rod of Ages again for the Cassiopeia. Peanut wanting to make a gank up here into the top lane, but this time, Bwipo can use that ultimate to get himself away away in time. The Impale interrupts his decimating smash. They're looking for a little bit more damage onto him here. Viper free-firing pretty hard onto the Sion, but Bwipo again just knocking him back up into the air. Blade Caller takes him low, but it won't take him down. As Hanwha Life still just trying to get this wave pushed up. They would love to be able to knock down the last little bit of this turret. Bwipo barely hanging on, almost no HP left. Meanwhile, down in the bottom lane, another fight's going to be breaking out as Zeka and Delight try to stay in a fight, but Bwipo's going to be killed underneath the tier 1 turret at the top lane at the same time. A little bit more damage onto Zeka. Ain't going to do it here just yet. Inspired critically low. Zeka still fighting. A slam back at the wall. Inspired is alive, and Zeka's down.
I think that's a kill across the board from both sides. The problem is that Viper's getting a tower as well. Peanut is continuing to invest resources into making sure that Viper is being snowballed. But FlyQuest are doing the smart thing. They're cross-mapping. They're moving into an area of the map that should belong to them, and HLE is fighting them for it. Zeka overstays his welcome, and he ends up giving over a kill.
3,500 gold lead for HLE as the turret plates fall, and the numbers popped up on your screen there. It was 7 plates to just the single plate over there for FlyQuest. It's plus 750 of that 3.5k just in the plates from the lane control that HLE has asserted.
And even with the kill on Massu, Viper has a 2,000 gold advantage here. He got all of that plate gold, got the first tower gold on top side, got the kill on Bwipo as well. Bwipo was obviously just trying to delay while they look for a cross-map play, trying to soak pressure from those two members. But this lane economy snapshot powered by MasterCard showcases the enormous hill that they will have to climb now that this advantage has really gotten out of control for Viper.
I will say, though, that Quad, I think, is still in a good position. He can match into Zeka very comfortably right now, especially with all the mana he's now been able to stockpile. It makes it that much harder for Zeka to play in the side lane. But you are right in that the big scary point is Viper.
Yeah.
But the good news is that if you take out Viper, the scary point disappears.
Oh.
Now, I'm not saying it's easy to take out Viper.
Pretty difficult, actually.
Yeah, in fact, his whole toolkit is designed for
Maybe
being
down 10k, but the good point is if you kill their Nexus, the lead doesn't matter.
I mean, but you've got to remember, in these team fights, this is where I give FlyQuest a lot of credit,
absolutely.
is that they are very good at finding that target, the target that they need. And while, no, they don't have an Amumu. No, they don't have the Nunu. I'm noticing a trend. But it is going to be harder this time round because Viper's on a champion that is about that self-sufficiency. It welcomes the dive. It wants to be able to find those outplays. In the event that they're able to shut down Viper, then FlyQuest have the tools to turn those fights.
Well, it's really interesting because I don't know that they do have the tools to actually kill off Viper, you know, early on in the fight, unless he really misplays. But I do think they have the ability to still potentially absorb and engage and have someone like Bwipo just kind of zoning Viper out, giving his life and having the team win on the other side. So I think that's going to be what they're looking for. But the problem is HLE is doing such a good job of extending the gold lead. You know, it really stalled out in those other games. You know, last game it was about a 3k gold lead around 10 minutes, which was massive, but it really stalled from there. And now this is nearly a 5,000 gold lead here.
Nicely maneuvered there with the Herald from Zeka to drive it from the bottom lane into the mid lane. The previous 2 games, we have seen the Herald crash into the wall, not quite get the value you were hoping for with that lane-to-lane drift. This time around, Zeka's got his driver's license. He's making sure that Herald hits exactly on the mark. But it is the biggest gold lead we've seen in this early, slowly transitioning into mid-game point in the series so far, with a 4.5, nearly 5,000 gold lead for HLE and 30 seconds until the 3rd Drake of the game spawns.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how quickly this game is snowballing out of control. FlyQuest, it's true that so far in this series they haven't been able to find much footing in the early game, but as you rightly said, Azael, the deficit wasn't that bad, but just like that off the back of the Herald, they're ballooning it so rapidly with a lot of the gold advantage sitting on Peanut and Viper, who really have been the stars of the series when we think about the entire best of 3.
Yeah, I think Doran was very big in game 1 on the Jax as well. You know, I think Peanut for sure, to me, is by far the standout player for HLE thus far this series. His early game has been so strong. He's been pathing well, and we're going to see another tower die here as HLE just step forward, threaten it, and continue to build that gold lead here. Now just a hair under 5,000 at this point. But we're going to be trying to push up on that top side as Quad farms on bot. FlyQuest has no intention, obviously, of fighting for this dragon. Again, just trying to play for that cross map, see if they can get some gold back.
Yeah, the name of the game for FlyQuest is stall, 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 because HLE is so far in control of this game. You can see the inventory of Quad. The Rod of Ages stacked up to 6. He's got about 2/3 of the stacks on the tier as well, so around the time that he completes that Archangel staff, it should be nearly ready to immediately evolve as Bwipo is once again in a compromised position. He flashes away so he can use the ulti to continue escaping and avoid another death.
Fortunately for Bwipo, his base was interrupted there by Delight, who was able to find, well, he was able to find Bwipo and be annoying. It's the TLDR. They get the flash out, and so that's a nice win. The Dragon was also secured there in favor of HLE. And Massu now being sent bot lane to catch that wave. Ultimately, it's just a map game once again for HLE. They're not really trying to overforce any fights. They're just leveraging the pressure that they have to kind of split FlyQuest apart and slowly but surely kind of dissect them of their resources, suffocate them with jungle farm, deny them any vision, and look for these type of picks.
So what I'm kind of looking at right now is this sort of 9-minute timer on FlyQuest for the Dragon Soul. That's the point where you're really going to start to feel this, okay, we can't really stall anymore type of moment. Since they got that first Drake, luckily it's not super soon. But you're looking at about, what, 28 minutes on the clock, and that's about how long FlyQuest is going to have to scale. You can see that Archangel staff that I talked about is now fully completed, so the stacking towards the Seraphs is going to be that much further accelerated for Quad. Still only one item on Inspired, not feeling super strong on that Vi. As soon as he presses R, it's pretty much a guaranteed one-way ticket. 2 items completed now on Massu with the Kai'Sa, though. Really wants to hit 3 to feel like he's got some good firepower.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's always this difficult situation when you are a 2-threat comp like FlyQuest have, is that HLE can just full send it on the one strong member potentially, and if you don't have that secondary carry to really kind of punish, that can be very problematic, and that's a situation that I think FlyQuest are finding themselves in a little bit now. Massu does have 2 items though, so he's not in a horrible spot, but you know, we'll see if HLE can continue to push the pace here. Still maintaining just about that 5,000 gold lead, but now the Baron is here. This is really on the precipice for FlyQuest. If they can hold on, win a team fight, you know, they can pull it back, but one good team fight from HLE and this game is probably going to get out of reach.
I mean, the good news for FlyQuest is this first Baron so far has been the turning point. So all you're relying on is HLE to force the objective. And for what it's worth, I don't think HLE's Barons have ever been like a wrong decision. I genuinely think that FlyQuest have just been outplaying HLE when it comes to the Baron setup. Perhaps you could question the one of like doing a Baron in the face of a Nunu. That one probably was a little bit more questionable. But ultimately, FlyQuest have been better at punishing the Baron setups and starting. So we'll see if FlyQuest can do the same thing here in Game 3.
Well, if we want to talk about good things for HLE, let's talk about Viper, plus over 2,000 gold, Essence Reaver, plus Navori Quick Blades, both already completed. You can see also building towards the complete evolution of the Last Whisper as well. He's almost on 3-item power spike. This Xayah is an absolute monster.
You can see Bwipo trying to answer that as Delight will be forced to flash there.
Bit of an ambitious ward he was going for there, I will admit.
Inspired looking for a collapse. They may try to see if they can get something more, but not going to fully commit to the play. Yeah, Bwipo obviously just going to be fully stacking armor. I really see his job as basically walking at Viper and trying to make Viper hit only you while your team plays a 4v4. And we'll see if he's going to be able to actually get into a good position to really try to accomplish that, because you know, Zeka versus Quad, that's pretty even, and we'll see if they can find any sort of a play here.
Yeah, because the argument that you're proposing, right, is into a Cassio, front to back is great, right? She's just going to melt any front line that comes into her.
4 melee.
And so when you have Rell plus Sion, you don't have to, this is what, as I was saying in draft, right, you don't have to overforce this dive, especially into someone like a Xayah. Instead, you save those ultimates for later on into the fight, where maybe you can catch a straggler who's off guard, maybe you can burn a flash and then use that on that target. There are options the FlyQuest have to approach the fight.
And that's always the risk when you play a 4 melee comp, is that you just naturally stack up, right, as you're trying to target someone, and then that can mean form in, you know, Cassio ult or a Rell combo. And in some of these situations, it'll be interesting to see how Inspired plays it, but like, I don't know how successful it's going to be throwing that ult onto Xayah. We have HLE on Baron.
Yeah, HLE's starting this one up. They know how powerful their carry is. Now with Immortal Reminder fully completed. Down there in the bottom lane, Bwipo having to back away from Doran at the same time. HLE unchallenged in the Baron so far, but now FlyQuest trying to step up. Delight here in the very front. They try to jump in. Inspired wants to go after the Poppy, but it ain't going to matter a whole lot. Quad's going to get caught. Nice Feather Collar, but it doesn't matter. Viper's already down. Bwipo teleports into the fight, but so does Doran. It's a 2-for-2 so far. Peanut trying to get away. Massu needs to buy a little bit of time. Busio here in the front line, but it ain't gonna matter. Massu now in trouble. Gnar misses. Sidestep comes out, but the Proto Belt is still there. It's a 1v3 and Massu's done for. That's a nice fight for HLE. Yeah, they lost their Fed guy, but it took way too much from FlyQuest, and the remaining 3 men from Hanwha Life go right back to the Baron.
FlyQuest successfully shut down Viper, but they had to commit absolutely everything to do it. With Zeka still alive, they were able to turn the fight onto Quad And as Azel's been saying, when you have this 2 damage threat composition, if you lose one of those sources, your damage is cut in half. A promising start to the fight in favor of FlyQuest, but HLE close it out.
Yeah, and they can even delay the Baron take there, so they got Baron buff on all 5 members. Some slight mispositions, some slight misplays there from FlyQuest, I do think made that fight a lot harder for themselves. Inspired gave Delight a way to E out. Delight had no flash from the earlier play. Watch as Inspired gets behind him. It gives Delight a way to actually get out of the fight. Had he not done that, it could have been a very different look. Then Quad flashes in. They all try to go for this play here. They do get Viper, but Quad is CC'd 100-0 by the stolen Vi-ult, and then Peanut CC in on the back line. And Busio and Bwipo just can't buy enough space here for Massu. As soon as Doran is going to mega out, they know there's no shot at winning this fight. Just these slight differences really meant a lot here for FlyQuest.
Yeah, the idea as well from, I mean, when Quad flashes in with the W and he connects it onto both Viper and Delight, you're like, oh nice, now they can't do anything, but that's the beauty of the Xayah ulti. You can just throw that up and you're completely safe in that situation while making that dive so much harder.
FlyQuest now in a really tough spot. They're down over 8,000 gold, and HLE wants to end this game fast. They do not want to allow FlyQuest to try to scale to a point where they can come back into this game. Doran's going to be split pushing over in mid lane, while the remaining 4 players on HLE put the pressure on the tier 3 turret bottom. They've still got this Baron for another minute and a half, and they are going to suffocate FlyQuest out of the rift.
2 towers fall. They put themselves at soul point. They steal away all the jungle camps. 8.7k is the goal difference between them, and Hanwha Life, they recognize the failures of their previous Barons, and instead they use this one to turn and fight. And while the start of the fight did look a little scary for them, they're ultimately able to execute, and now they can play the map with confidence, knowing that they are the ones with full wallets as they set their sights on FlyQuest base.
And this lead now, you really are depending upon mistakes from HLE. It kind of is a game that becomes a little bit out of FlyQuest's hands when you are down, over 8,000 gold, when you have your opponents at soul point, when you have your opponents with that Baron buff. So FlyQuest gonna have to wait for mistakes and see if they can find an opportunity.
Zeka's the target, but he uses the stasis to get away from the Vi ultimate. Magnet Storm followed by the Killer Instinct from Massu. A pick for FlyQuest on the HLE mid laner, but at the cost of so many resources. Bwipo now trying to defend underneath the tier 2 turret here in the top lane, but the rest of FlyQuest is coming to collapse. Inspired has gone over the wall, coming up behind Delight. Bwipo surely going to be killed here, but remember that he comes back to life. FlyQuest still trying to keep the fight going. Busio goes over the wall. Delight's going to be your target here with a Shattering Strike coming out, but a little bit more damage is still going to be required. Busio grabbing the kill on that one. Petrifying Gaze onto Peanut. Viper and Doran still trying to fight, but a massive impale from Peanut to turn it right back around. That might just be the game from the Hanwha Life jungler.
Quad is forced to retreat as Hanwha Life find a massive fight. Viper and Peanut do it once again. The 3-man ultimate into the feathers mean that the inhibitor will fall, and HLE set their sights on the Nexus.
HLE on the victory march. FlyQuest did everything they could to try to stop it. They pushed HLE to a game 3, but you don't become #1 in the LCK for nothing. They're on to the Nexus turrets, and they want to end the game and end the series here. Doran down to about 1/3 HP as Zeka has to retreat now as well. Peanut trying to get away back through the bottom lane. He cruises through the wall. HLE heading back away. Peanut going to try to execute to the turret. The shield to buy a little bit of extra time, but it still doesn't matter. Busio will get the kill credit. FlyQuest hang on ever so barely.
Yeah, by the skin of their teeth, FlyQuest do hang on. I love the attempt at that play after the pick onto Zeka, and honestly, if it wasn't for that buffered ulti there from Peanut, I think FlyQuest win that fight. They were in a great situation. They land the Petrifying Gaze stun onto Peanut, but that ulti, the buffer there, really changed the whole game. Because Bwipo obviously is getting taken down, but FlyQuest, no, this is our chance. This is a 5v4. If we can ace them here, we can make something happen. Delight is sectioned out and really goes down pretty much for free. Bwipo buys a lot of time. Quad is poking around on the side. Doran has no mega, but it all comes down to this ultimate. From this spot, it's a very winnable fight here. No mega on Doran. The stun lands, but this ulti comes out right before he gets stunned from the Vi Q. Buffers it perfectly in time. The Blade Caller is there, and it is absolute cinema from the HLE side. The FlyQuest coaching staff knew that was their moment to try to come back.
You could not have a bigger, badder, better Skarner ult than what Peanut just did to guarantee the victory in a fight that otherwise looked doomed for HLE. Now, Dragon Soul spawning in a little bit over 30 seconds. Baron spawning in a little bit under 1 minute. FlyQuest backs are against the wall. The slightest, smallest mistake is the end of the game and the end of the series as HLE take to the rift once again, ready to force FlyQuest back.
And look at top lane. All they have to do is just delay. FlyQuest have no TPs to be able to answer here, but if they base, they give up soul. So HLE just needs to just keep them here and buy time for the supers.
Super minions continuing their march. You can see a recall from Massu, but he cancels it. Quad has teleport, but not yet. It's still got a little bit of that cooldown left on it. No teleports available for either one of the players on HLE either. And it looks like FlyQuest is just saying, give it. Don't bother fighting for this. It's not going to work out. Free Chemtech soul for HLE.
And I think this is the right call here from FlyQuest. I think you're almost guaranteed to lose from that spot. And honestly, one dragon doesn't get you back into the game, even if you're able to steal it. So, you know, having a hope at maybe an Elder Flip or something like that, when you're this monumentally behind, is actually a better shot. You know, you look for a 50-50 at an Elder, you look for a 50-50 at a Baron. That's the kind of objective that might be able to get you back into it. But that being said, you're still down 10,000 gold, and there's a soul on top of it. It is a nearly impossible game for FlyQuest to play.
It certainly is, and they're not going to be given any opportunity to steal this one away. The vision has been denied. Delight is hovering on the outside of the pit. There's Doran acting as bodyguard as well. And that's going to be a Baron secured for Hanwha Life.
Zeka even stealing away the buy ultimate, so in case anybody from FlyQuest tries to stop it, he can immediately jump in to punish. Doran jumps in, wants to go for the Mega Gnar, but he doesn't find a whole lot of success with it. Zeka versus Inspired off to the side as FlyQuest try to hold the line. Miasma to stop HLE from stepping any further forward. Doran at about half HP, Bwipo doing the same. Over the wall goes Zeka, he's into the back line, but he uses the stasis. Magnet Storm from Busio looking to keep everybody locked up, but Viper is already unstoppable and FlyQuest is crumbling. A little bit more damage from Doran might get it done, but Quad kills Delight. FlyQuest scrambling, but it will not matter. HLE will not be denied. The LCK's #1 seed will earn their win, earn their ticket to the quarterfinals. 19-8, 30 minutes in, they'll take the series.
And what a heroic performance by Peanut. He was crushing it in this series. The early games from Peanut, absolutely incredible. And really the lone shot of a comeback for FlyQuest in this one, absolutely denied by an incredible Skarner ult. Really showcasing his class in this one.
Beautifully done by HLE. FlyQuest pushed him, but HLE was ready to answer. Desk, what do you think?
We think that it is a magnificent game plan from HLE in that last one. They said game 3, we're gonna wake up. But I can't, and they are a deserved quarterfinalist, absolutely right. But you keep on thinking to what could have been if FlyQuest won that game 1. But that's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes at Worlds.
Yeah, I was gonna say more than this game, I feel like FlyQuest are probably looking at their game 1 and are like, oh man, like that was something that we did have. Compositionally, we were in a very good position to deal with what they had, and they were not able to get that win, even when it looked like they had opportunities. But congrats to HLE. They really pulled it together in this final game. They're like, okay. Their draft was also, again, this is not the first time in this series that I felt like they understood their draft, because I felt like they understood their draft in the other 2 games as well, but they came in with a good response to what FlyQuest ended up blocking in early on.
I thought the Xayah ended up being incredibly pivotal.
Yeah.
Partially because of the player, because it is Viper, and he had been so far ahead in previous games and then didn't have the pick to interact with the enemy team comp where he could actually carry. But once that Xayah got 2,000 gold ahead, there really didn't feel like a strong play for FlyQuest to make. And even with that, like they did actually manage to kill him once in that river fight down towards the Baron. So, I mean, HLE is the #1 seed from the LCK.
Yeah.
They are
bleed, though.
Incredible players.
They bleed.
But they absolutely bleed. I think FlyQuest absolutely came to play today, even in this game 3, right? Even in this game 3 where they lost in 26 minutes. Because from incredibly losing states, they still managed to find ways to make the game interesting, both in the Baron fight that they ended up losing after killing Viper, and even that top fight, which needed the hero triple Skarner ult into Xayah Feathers in order to win. So, you know, FlyQuest actually never stopped fighting, and I hope they continue this mentality in the 2-2 series.
I'm just going to say they look like the scariest Western team at this point in Swiss.
So far.
So far, yes, but I mean, this is the #1 seed, right? They took a game off HLE with a super sick combo, but in the end, it wasn't enough, and it's HLE that goes on, and Viper is standing by in the Verizon post-game interview.
And welcome back to the stage as Hanwha Life Esports advances to quarterfinal. And Viper, thank you so much for joining me. Jason, thank you so much for being with us as well. First question I have for you, not really a question actually. Any comments on Nunu?
가장 먼저 누누 픽에 대한 반응이 어땠나요?
완전 아무무까지는 생각을 했는데 누누는 예상 밖이었고 좀 좋았던 것 같아요, 챔피언.
I definitely had a Mumu on my list, but definitely not Nunu.
All right.
I think it's a very good champion. It was very strong.
How did you guys react when Inspired picked the champion?
픽 당시 선수분들 반응은 어땠나요?
좀 안 보던 픽이라서 그런 좀 생각이 뭔가 어떻게 해야 될지를 일단 생각을 했는데 뚜렷하게 잘 파괴한 것 같지는 않네요.
So because we don't get to see that champion pretty much at all, like we were trying to come up with like how we're gonna deal with it, what are we gonna do, but we were not able to find the right solution.
All right, and when you think of the prep that FlyQuest did against you and your preparation, is there anything that surprised you outside of the champions?
챔피언 픽 말고도 이제 하나생명도 준비해온 그런 부분이 있을 거고 상대팀도 준비해온 부분이 있었을 텐데 조금 많이 당황스러웠다든지 새로웠던 부분도 있을까요?
사실 챔피언 이런 것보다도 좀 오늘 상대했을 때 뭔가 플레이에 자신감이 있어 보여서 그런 게 되게 좋아 보였습니다.
I mean, definitely, I could feel their confidence from their play. Like, I could feel the aura, so I was having a lot of respect to them.
Incredible aura on the side of FlyQuest, of course. Focusing a bit more on you, Viper. You've played amazing this series, this year. I feel like when people talk about you, they talked about the textbook of AD carries, an example for all the AD carries. How does that make you feel that people look up to you so much?
바이퍼 선수 오늘 경기도 정말 세 세트 내내 놀라운 활약을 보여주셨고 올해 내내 정말 좋은 퍼포먼스를 유지하셨는데 많은 분들이 원딜의 교과서다, 원딜의 정석이다 라고 말씀해 주시는데 이런 부분에 대해서 어떻게 생각하시나요?
우선 첫 번째로 오늘 그렇게 잘했다고는 생각을 안 하고요. 오늘 실수도 많았고 좀 보완해야 될 게 많다고 생각하고 좋게 생각해 주시는 건 감사하지만 지금 당장은 최고라고 말할 수 없을 것 같아서 다음 경기에 제대로 보여드리겠습니다.
Firstly, I don't think I performed well today. There were a lot of mistakes, and I'm very grateful for the compliments. But right now, I don't think I can claim myself as the world's best yet. So next match, I'm gonna show the real deal.
Looking forward to the quarterfinals in that sense. Last question for you. You will be playing in Paris. You will be playing in quarterfinals. Do you have a message for all the Western fans cheering for Hanwha Life and looking forward to seeing you?
마지막으로 이제 8강에 진출하셨고요. 파리 무대에서 경기를 치르실 예정입니다. 많은 서양 팬분들도 하나생명의 선전을 기원하고 있는데요. 팬분들께 한마디 부탁드립니다.
이렇게 멀리서도 가까이 있죠 지금은. 네. 응원해 주셔서 너무 감사하고 꼭 4강에 가는 모습을 파리에서 보여드리겠습니다.
Thank you so much for supporting us from far away. I mean, right now they're very close, but from far, far away. And I will make sure to display that we are able to make it to the semis as well in Paris.
Fantastic. Looking forward to seeing you there. Ji-san, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Viper, for the interview as well. Looking forward to seeing you in Paris. And that's all for us here. Hanwha Life advances to quarterfinals.
They sure do. Those spots in quarterfinals, they're going fast. You need to grab one. They're running out. Viper is also our Oppo player of the series, which I think we were discussing between Peanut and Viper, which makes a lot of sense. I do think kind of his ability to maybe even single-handedly in some skirmishes make you so afraid of what he could be doing, even in the game that they lost. And then the Xayah pick, which was also executed to perfection. I think you make a good argument for both.
I'm curious to see which clips we have,
Me
because
too.
from my memory, there are so many like game-saving or game-winning plays that he made. That was game one.
Yeah, the Kai'Sa play reminded me of the Ashe play he had to keep HLE in their series against Gen G in finals for LCK Summer. But yeah, like I love hearing interviews with Viper, and he's like, well, I don't really think I played that well today. I made a lot of mistakes. I'd love to like sit down and see him break down like a game of his. He's someone who's really, really smart, and I've enjoyed talking to him in interviews previously. So it's always fun to like hear his opinion, because he also understands the game really
I think he just has impossible standards. Like, he made 99 of 100 free throws, and he's like, shouldn't have missed that one. Shouldn't have missed it.
And then he's like, and I lost to Nunu. Oh, I'll never hear the end of it.
He did like 1,250 DPM in that Ezreal game that they lost, and he nearly saved the game when he dodged Bwipo at his own Nexus turrets to save the game. Like, even in the game that he lost, he played great.
Very LCK mindset aspire to be like Viper for sure. So are you able to kind of break apart? We have the entire series, right? But things we've seen from HLE in games 1 and 2, you know, aside from the last game where they definitely... The understanding is that when they get into those best of 5, they are now only going to do what they did in game 3, probably, in terms of like, okay, we're really hunker down on the picks. You know, we're going to be very tight in the moves that we make and make sure that we don't overstep as much. Is that what we can expect now? Or do you think, well, hey, there's a possibility here for whoever plays them?
I mean, I actually think that they didn't play badly in games 1 and 2. I think they played mostly the same in all 3 games, and they're a very high-level team. I just think the team compositions that they were up against in game 1 and 2, they had. I wish you had your book here.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
like,
no,
if
I
there's
left it
this
over
book
there.
of League of Legends, right? HLE is incredibly good in early game. Peanut's one of the best pathers in the world, and they have some of the best laners in the world. And they know how to achieve victory against like the first 100 pages of team comps, but they haven't gotten to like chapter 327. Where Nunu is and where Bwipo, like where the rest of the weird FlyQuest stuff is. So like I think if they were to run into this exact same team in these exact same drafts again, they'd be better in round 2 for sure. And I still think they're actually an incredibly good team, because they generated leads consistently in all 3 of their games.
And comfortably.
To your point, I think going forward, this will make them a lot more cognizant of team compositions that do counter what they like to do, right? Because I know Vedi brought it up in Cast, where he's like, sure, they could be playing fast and loose, but also part of it can be that they're locking in a lot of these melee, like dive compositions where they really want to get on you, like with the Yone, right? So I think going forward, this can only help HLE in terms of, okay, we've seen now 2 team compositions that do really well into the things that we know and love to play.
And if we flip it on the other side, for FlyQuest, if we take a look at the bracket, which they are still very much in, and I think they have made perhaps some teams looking a little bit more trepidatious going into that possible matchup. But is there more in the book of FlyQuest? I want to know.
I hope so. I mean, they reran the Sion top, and it wasn't as effective as it was against GAM. But I think they're definitely a strong team, but it's going to depend on the draw. Look at all the other teams they could still face. The loser of G2 T1, and then the winner of so either G2 or T1 is going to be there, and then probably BLG, Weibo, TL in there. Like, nothing's easy.
Yeah, I think the big thing for me for FlyQuest is, yes, they have like crazy picks that they can pull out, especially in these red side drafts. But I also think the big things for me that have been consistent with this team from here, from their LCS finals win, from watching them, even in some of their like shakier wins in LCS, is that they do have a really strong understanding of where they want to put gold into, like especially their solo laners when you're looking at their lane assignments. And I think that's something, when their opponent gets out to a lead, they're very good at kind of backing off and being like, okay, here's what we want to do. And that's not something that's credited to their picks. It's just something that they consistently, throughout a variety of drafts, have proven to be pretty good at understanding.
And they haven't even...
Oh.
What is this?
There's a minion in the fridge.
They haven't even brought out their secret weapon.
No, it's right here if you need it. All jokes aside, though, let's preview tomorrow for just a second, because Your girl is a little bit nervous already.
Yeah.
So
T1,
series,
G2 first?
series
BLG,
score for the
PSG.
season, 2-6.
2-6 for the season. Generally, I think every team should be very afraid of T1, and I think you're more afraid of them because of how they played their best of ones until now. I think very much so. Huge glow up, huge adaptations made by T1, and you take that regardless, even if they didn't, you still would have given it to them because of because of generally how good they are in situations like this. Even more at Worlds than at MSI, I would wager. So this is difficult.
Can I bright side this for you?
Yeah.
T1's only played in best of ones at Worlds.
Yeah.
Why are we so sure that their level is their BLG game and not the game that they lost?
I don't know.
Like, they had one good one, one bad one, and we're just expecting the good one to be their form? I don't know.
Yeah. G2 lost to HLE, but it was close. And they had Yone, though.
I was going to say, even in the game they lost, the thing that makes me confident in T1 is just the fact that they look so much more comfortable in this meta. And they've been able to execute really well, I think.
More comfortable than G2 in the meta?
That's a good question.
Yeah. G2 are so weird because I know what they're capable of, right? And this is a match with a lot of history between the two organizations at Internationals, so that makes it really fun. I'm still siding on the T1 side, though. And I don't know. G2 fans are going to attack me on Twitter now, but it's fine.
You shouldn't be afraid of that. Someone's going to attack you either way because that's how Twitter is. Don't worry about it. And we're going to head into a story meeting in just a second where we're going to discuss what of the history you want to talk about tomorrow before that match, because there's a lot.
Yeah.
But I do want to say, BLG PSG. PSG is still thinking about that Game 5 at MSI. Yeah. I guarantee it. And perhaps BLG is also thinking about it because it's elimination this time around.
Yeah, and BLG are in our, like, all of the pressure is on BLG, right? Like, and especially with the way that they came out against PSG in MSI, I thought they were playing incredibly fast and loose. They did not seem to respect them in those first few games until they were forced into like refocusing. So this is also, like, we talk about all the history between G2, T1, and Internationals. BLG PSG is a really interesting grudge match from what we saw at MSI.
Chat, final notes.
I mean, it just felt like that MSI series wasn't real.
Yeah.
I think so many people forgot that it was actually one game away from BLG losing to PSG. I don't actually see it happening again. It's one of those weird things. Like, if PSG, if their logo actually said like TSM, people would definitely remember that. But just because there was no fan attachment to PSG from the Western audience, that people kind of forget that that was like one of the most impressive series of Eastern region versus not Eastern region of the entire year.
You said the key word there, Western audiences, because I think our global League of Legends audience and our LPL audience and our PCS audience most definitely remembers it. And we do as well. And we're really excited to see the rematch tomorrow. Oh, FlyQuest, you were so close.
They were.
But
you know what?
in the chat.
The
Good night.
It was fun.
What do you
They lost.
They did, unfortunately.
And they made HLE stronger.
My glass is half full, as it always is. I'm going to drink it. Good night, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Yep, the trick with best of threes is to come as close to losing as possible while still winning. Then you learn the most.
It's true.
Popping the counter strike, staying alive for now. Nice two-man stun coming out, but Kingen down to about 50 HP, still staying alive somehow with the volley. Jungler fight off to the side, ain't gonna matter because Moham is already dead. The arrows fly, and DK dies. Top Esports. Second, unless this turns into something absolutely crazy. There's your wombo combo with the engage.
That's the solution when you're having to deal with a 1,000-year-old samurai, just to pay them into a wall with a giant scorpion from 1,000 years ago as well.
He's down to about death's door, and they finally get him. Creep takes the kill. Lucid's trying to get away at 369, goes all out, all in, all the way forward for Top Esports.
Zeke, one in trouble.
Nice engage from Zeka, going in for the fate sealed. One little bit more damage on the quad, and the minions finish him off.
I feel like if I ult flash him and Cassiopeia has W, she will die. Their ball lane is going to be there. We are killing. Actually, wait, I think they're going top Bwipo. Bwipo, we didn't see them on business. I'm going to clear the wave. Half stacks. Yeah, play for fight, I'm going on Kai'Sa. Yeah, he has no cleanse already. Nice. Nice. We wiped them.
Crucially, we once
Viper with the kill instinct. He goes in after Massu. The bailout is not there in time. Viper with one. shows his fangs!
I'm going in. I come behind. Help. Here. We don't win. It's I think it's not bad. Okay. Front to back. Play slow. Q and 2. Yeah, that guy's dead. Go Poppy next. Yeah. Yo. Huh? Never mind. It's fine. What? Speak your mind. Don't make emotional calls. Just play the game and watch what's happening. I'm f***ing Desire, okay? Yeah. Just watch me. You can go out. You can go. Me or you guys, yeah. He's coming this way. No, they can't leave. Desire's on you. Go Poppy first. Desiire next. Yasuo, go. Yasuo, no flash. Kill them all. Nice your flash. Nice. No.
Busio here with the front line, but it ain't gonna matter. Massu now in trouble. Gnar misses. Sidestep comes out, but the Proto Belt is still there. It's a 1v3, and Massu's done for. Petrifying gaze onto Peanut. Viper is going to the fight, but a massive impale from Peanut. That might just be the game from the Hanwha Life jungler.